From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We're joined with our guest producer, Max the Freight Train Williams. Most importantly, you are here, and that makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. A lot of people are flying on planes these days, and things are only getting weirder. We also found some frightening, heartbreaking evidence of corruption in Big Pharma. Not a theory. Seems pretty true. We'll get to it. But first, our news today takes us to Mississippi. And this is a story about a celebrity, but there's much more to it than that. I want to give a special shout out to our pal West over at Station 16, because Noel, as we were coming in to record, just earlier today, in fact, our pal West was talking to me, and he wanted to ask us about corruption in Mississippi. What fantastic timing.
Yeah, well, now if you live in Mississippi, I suppose it's pretty horrible timing there, often for the least fortunate. And Mississippi is, of course, also a state populated by the least fortunate of Americans. It is the poorest state in the country. And Matt, you brought us, we've been keeping up with the story that you started talking about in a previous news episode about their ongoing water troubles. And now essentially the residents of the capital city of Mississippi, Jackson, were kind of left high and dry, or, well, wet, but mainly with filthy, dangerous water and boil advisories galore and all kinds of really bad-looking moments from politicians there who just, this is very clear that there's not a whole lot of thought put into the welfare of the citizens. And the key word there here for today's story is welfare, a term that can be, kind of weaponized, used negatively in terms of politicians saying, oh, welfare is bad. It's like handouts from the government, people that should kind of pull themselves up by their bootstraps, whatever. And that is, according to reporting coming out of Mississippi, somewhat the attitude there, it would seem. Local residents were not surprised to find out that money from the Mississippi Department of Human Services had been misappropriated at the very least, stolen at the very worst, to fund everything from traffic tickets for officials to sports facilities, pet projects of NFL former superstar Bret Favre. And you may know this guy's kind of been in hot water in the past due to some allegations of sexual assault, and he apparently is neck deep embroiled in this scandal that also involves the former governor of Mississippi, Republican Phil Bryant. Texts have emerged recently in court documents between Bret Favre and former Republican Governor Phil Bryant, joking about like, oh, I'm too old to end up in federal prison, LOL, cool guy emoji. Also, other texts between Bryant and Bret Favre have been released showing that the governor was more than happy to help Favre raise private money for a volleyball facility at his daughter's university that started construction in 2017. And apparently a lot of this, misappropriated welfare money, in fact, around, I believe, 8 million, close to it, was kind of funneled into these pet projects of Bret Favre, including several million for this volleyball facility. And the issue with this story that's so interesting, and I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on it, is the government in Mississippi is so rife with corruption and this kind of self-serving, attitude of like, oh, welfare is misuse of money because, poor folks should be able to kind of like dig themselves out of their own situation. But this is literally money that could have gone towards like parenting classes for folks that have maybe lost their kids due to homelessness or due to varying circumstances. And obviously this is all of these things can be divisive, and you can be on both sides and saying that parents who lose their kids maybe shouldn't have a second chance. But I mean, that's what this money is for, is to help people rehabilitate themselves because likely they were part of a system that to some degree fed into their circumstances. I mean, everything is not a choice. To some degree, you are put in a situation, and if you're not given the opportunities that some people have, you are more likely to end up, in one of these negative situations. So, but the question becomes, is this just boneheaded government, like funneling money to silly things and not putting it in the right places, or is this flat out fraud? And not to mention a conspiracy. I mean, it is, essentially the former director of the Mississippi Department of Human Services, a guy named John Davis, pled guilty Thursday to federal and state felony charges involving a conspiracy to misspend this welfare money. And he was appointed by that former governor of Mississippi, Bryant, in 2016. And then he was fired in July of 2019, and he's going to name names. So the truth is going to come out, but the fact that it's such a gray area as to whether this was like, negligence or outright fraud at the highest level. This guy, seems like he's almost like the fall guy. And do you really think Bret Favre and the governor are going to take the fall? I don't know, but it's a very upsetting story. What do you guys think?
I'm still wrapping my head around all the details here. There's a lot of stuff. I'm reading this AP News article you linked us to, Noel, that discusses a bunch of people and what they knew. This person Nancy
That's
knew,
right.
and John Davis, and like Favre, and I guess that Bryant character who was governor. Right. So like it just seems pretty. They're following text messages, right? It's often like
Correct.
That's what I'm seeing they're looking at.
And a lot of this stuff came out like a year or more ago. And so this is sort of like, almost like new information that makes it look even worse. And Favre's involvement much more knowing. You know what I mean? That there would come a point where he would say, well, I didn't know what they were going to do with the money. I didn't ask for it. But then now there are text messages literally saying, I think he's asking Nancy knew, is anyone ever going to know where this money came from? And she says something to the effect of like, no, you're covered. Because, that's definitely something you'd be worried about if legitimate funds are being used for your project, right?
Mm-hmm. And also, want to specifically say that charity, Fav for Hope, number 4. There's a thing that I recommend everybody do when you're learning about a charity. Go to charitynavigator.org. Charitynavigator.org is a pretty comprehensive way to look at a charity that you don't know much about. They give it a score. They talk about the impact and results of the charities, but then they also talk about their financials and accountability. They grade on a 1 to 100 scale, and this charity is still rated 85 out of 100, which isn't too bad, but also, as terrible as it is to have to admit it, charities are often used to wash money. Most charities are really great, and they're doing fantastic work. But you need to understand that charities can also be a vehicle for financial crime and corruption.
Well, and another thing, too, this alleged scam did, and again, this Favre's association with this, very much alleged. Like, again, charges have been filed in court, but thus far, Favre has not been legally implicated directly. This is, just an ongoing story. But he allegedly was also paid over $1 million for speaking engagements that never took place. A lot of money was, funneled for it's like kind of gangster type stuff. Like, when you run a scam on a construction site and you overcharge for like, a chair, and it's a way of kind of like hiding where the money goes.
Well, was Favre getting a VIG or like was that money actually going to him? Getting paid for this? It was
going to him to help pay for this arena. He had this volleyball facility built, and that happened like, several years ago. And now he's like almost double dipping. He's going back to the trough, allegedly, to help pay for another sports facility.
Right. Yeah. And he also, to be clear, he paid the money back. But what I was seeing is that the state of Mississippi is still seeking something like a little south of $230,000 for unpaid interest. So he got, like you said, Noel, he got $1.1 million in appearance and speaking fees for things that he apparently never actually did. And then he paid the money back, but that's not enough to satisfy the state yet. Also, it's very damaging to the people who just, work with or at this charity, right? Like everybody's been in these situations before. I would hazard, or some version of this where you are part of a bigger organization, and the organization or some high level person in that organization does something terrible. You know what I mean? Like there are plenty of members of the military who hear some terrible news about something awful happening, and they're thinking, oh, great, are people going to associate me with this now? I'm just, I'm the guy who does the paperwork to make sure the ice cream shows up on time. And
That's
now
right.
I'm associated with war criminals. Like we have to be careful not to lump everybody unfairly into the same bag of badgers. But Noel, this doesn't look great for Bret. Looks like he knew what he was doing and he did it on purpose.
It does look that way, but again, I'm skeptical as to what degree a person at that level, is going to truly suffer, other than just in the court of public opinion. Like I have a hard time believing they're going to take away all of his yachts, maybe just like one. And again, it's like it's an insult to say. You're right, Ben. You're absolutely right about that article from 2021, October of last year, when he paid back $600,000, but he basically, what he did amounted to an interest-free loan. No, you don't get those. I don't care who you are. It's like that's not how the world works. And especially when you're like taking it out of the coffers of, folks who could really use it. This is for like food assistance,
right.
Things that we know of as like the SNAP program here in Georgia, where folks that are, maybe young parents, need a little help. I was on food stamps when I was a very new parent. And it was incredibly valuable to have that, it was, and obviously things progressed and my career kind of, bloomed and things like that. But I was a very young parent and it was really scary. My career, I didn't make very much money at the time, and we were living with my mom, and it was something that was very helpful, and we used it. And then this is, and there are people that were even way less fortunate than we were. Like we had a place to live for free and all of that, but like there are folks who are an inch from being on the street and who need this money to stay afloat and to take care of their kids. And this is, again, some of the reporting that I read, out of Mississippi, and I apologize that the reporter's name is escaping me. I heard her do an interview on NPR where she was talking about speaking to some of the people, residents, and saying how they weren't surprised about any of this, because there seems to be an attitude and a perception that the government in Mississippi doesn't really care about its poorest citizens, that they're all in it to enrich themselves, and that they feel like welfare is something that is some sort of commie thing. It really does have this very condescending attitude towards the idea of welfare, which is a way of like justifying these crimes. And again, even everyone in the Department of Human Services, surely not in on this. I'm not saying that. But at the highest levels, that kind of attitude trickles down.
Yeah, and the timing is so weird because I was asking some folks who are working with us on a few secret projects, some of whom were from Mississippi, right? We mentioned West earlier. And I said, well, what's this? Isn't there a stereotype about corruption in Mississippi? And the guy looked at me and he said, it's not a stereotype. And then this story, which has been developing for a while, as you said, Noel, this story breaks, and I'm starting to wonder, there's a question for our conspiracy realist in Mississippi. How corrupt do you find the government on a local or state level? Is this just business as usual, this way of moving money? I mean, I believe Bret's daughter plays volleyball at the same university, right? And
yeah. I mean, it was obviously a nepotistic kind of move,
So is this unusual in Mississippi is my question. I don't know the answer. What do you guys think?
All I'm hearing in this whole story is the spoken word to police state by Dead Prez. Do you remember that, Ben? Does that ring in your ear at all?
Yes, I love a Dead Prez reference.
I can't tell you the whole thing, but it's something like, they're cutting the welfare, knowing damn well when you cut the welfare, people are going to do crime. Mm-hmm. Like this concept, like if that kind of that money is being misused, or just corruption is killing that money and those funds, then way more problems are going to happen, and in the end, it's probably going to end up putting more money in the law enforcement community's pockets.
Right. Oh, Matt, you're bringing back memories. We're talking about the very end of the song. You don't have to like hip hop to understand this message. It's something to think about. This is Fred Hampton and an unidentified speaker at the very end of Police State by Dead Prez. I am a revolutionary. And you're going to have to keep on saying that. You're going to have to say that I am the proletariat. I am the people. I am not the pig. Giuliani, you are full of shit. And anybody that's down with you, you could make things better for us, and you're cutting the welfare, knowing damn well when you cut the welfare, a person's going to do crime.
Truth. Yeah, great. Bummer, but good segue out of the story, because you're absolutely right, and especially in a situation where so many are on the verge of homelessness, the levels of poverty are so extreme that that cutting off that helping hand really could be the thing that drives somebody to that terrible next stage of poverty, which is being on the streets. And then if you're in charge, it's a lot easier to justify, well, why do we give money to these folks when they're just going to, do crimes? But it's a self-perpetuating cycle, like you said. And then it's just a way of justifying a police state. And that's not good for anybody except for the handful of rich white people at the top. So, take a break. We'll be back with another piece of strange news.
And we have returned. We're going to do a little bit of a multimedia experience here. I want to share some. That cat is not part of that multimedia experience, but we'll leave it in. That's Dr. Venkman, everybody. Please send your fan mail as appropriate. All right, I'm going to play this is just a few seconds. Matt Knoll, fellow conspiracy realist. And I know I had asked you guys not to check, but you may have already heard this. So play along at home. What do you think this is?
Goat? It sounds like one of those like kids' toys that when you turn upside down, it makes a moo sound like of a cow. Mm-hmm. Whoa, I don't know, Matt.
It sounds like a very unsuccessful attempt to evacuate a bowel after about 6 pizzas.
Right. So I can see it, dude. It's a really great short commercial. It's just a bathroom door slightly ajar. You hear the uhs, and then it fades out and it just goes Imodium. Right?
Or just fiber. It's like one of those Got Milk commercials, but for fiber.
Yeah. It's
what
like
was that thing on SNL? Colon Blow? Remember Colon Blow?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is an experience. This is pulled from an actor who posted this online, but he's not playing a character. It's his real life. He's on an American Airlines flight, and all of a sudden, the intercom appears to go nuts with someone moaning, groaning. Either they're constipated, maybe it's a sex thing. No one's really sure. As a matter of fact, before we went on air, guest producer Max Freight Train Williams hit me with the perfect phrase to describe this noise. Max, what is it? Is it grunching? Gurking. Max has told us. Gurking. And I think that's a perfect phrase for what's happening. There's a ghostly gurker on this American Airlines flight. This story takes off. Plain jokes. This story takes off because people are mystified, and you can hear the flight attendant or one of the flight attendants on this weird leg of the journey saying, look, we don't know what it is. No one's happy about it. The original guess was that someone had hacked into the Wi-Fi system and through that have been able to just play weird stuff on the intercom. At first, we've all started flying more often. I fly a lot. Noel, Matt, we fly a lot. Matt, no.
Not anymore, baby.
I got road trips are in my soul. It's true, as long as it's not a Honda Odyssey. But planes are weird, and things are just getting weirder. No one was hurt in this situation, but there was definitely some gurking, and it went on for the duration of the flight, all the way from LA to Dallas. The guy who posted this, Emerson Collins, described it as, quote, somewhere between an orgasm and vomiting. I bring this up because I originally liked the idea of a haunted airplane, even though it's very hard to prove whether or not an afterlife exists, much less ghost. But okay, what would be the explanation?
Is that like if a spirit left a body and was on its way up? I guess because spirits go up, right? I mean, everybody knows that. It's on its way up, and then it like got caught in the engine, or maybe it got sucked in the engine, or maybe got just stuck inside the plane somehow.
Well, you know why Spirit Airlines is so cheap is because every one of their flights is haunted. It's a thing. It is known.
It's not just school spirit. You know what I mean? Yeah, was there something trapped in there? I mean, we do know that there are animals that like the screaming goats that can reproduce something very close to a human sounding yell. You guys remember the screaming goats?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. How could I forget? It's seared into my memory.
I like how we vibe so hard. We're in this information bubble, and the weirdest things are normal to us now, right? Like, oh yeah, screaming goats, totally. Nasty customers. Well, this has an interesting explanation. First, people were saying, it got hacked, right? And all sorts of things can be hacked in the age of the Internet of Things. But American Airlines clapped back at that rumor and said, quote, the PA systems on board our aircraft are hardwired and there is no external access. Following the initial report, our maintenance team thoroughly inspected the aircraft and the PA system and determined the sounds were caused by a mechanical issue with the PA amplifier. I don't know why I went into cool guy voice. Let's keep it. Which raises the volume of the PA system when the engine's running, said American Airlines in a statement, presumably while wearing like a Hawaiian shirt that said chill out on the back.
Wait, what?
They're saying that the PA system it's a closed system, so there's no external access. The intercoms are hardwired.
Yeah, but I mean, what is that? A closed system in audio. If you know how to, there are ways. If you're a hacky type and you know how audio circuit flow works, or signal flow rather, it would be difficult. But I mean, you could conceivably convert a headphone output to an input. There's ways of doing it.
Right. But those are kind of like analog ways, right? Like you would be physically hacking at that point. You would have to
get access to like, the area where the master control kind of like, touchpad is. Mm-hmm. Probably you'd have to, and you know how hard it is to sneak around on planes. They won't let you back on a plane if you leave your wallet. It's like, there's so many specifics around, and like everything's, so like move and get to your seat. It'd be very difficult to do, but I'm not saying it's impossible. It also could have been some prankstery maintenance person, or who knows?
Well, but it means whoever's making that sound is on board or was on board and set some kind of system up to play it through the PA, right?
Also, like, I could think of more instantly recognizable pranks than just like a kooky sound.
Bapa Booey.
Yeah, or just like,
cushions.
American Airlines, there was some kind of like, protest or something. This is it's a very, I mean, even in terms of just the audio message, you know what I mean? Right. If they really wanted to like hijack the system and, stick one to the company, there are more direct ways of doing it. This just seems like a weird mishap that could be explained away in the way that it was, but I don't completely buy that explanation either. So
right, okay, here's another one. We're just off the top here. Okay, it's a hot mic situation. There's someone gherkin in the bathroom, whatever that means to you, and they don't know that they're live on the intercom. That's why you always have to be quiet in public restrooms. You don't know. That's a little life lesson from your friends. It's stuff they don't want you to know. It does not sound like a mechanical issue, really. It does sound like a dude moaning, in a hilarious way.
I have to say, though, if it was a pilot that was gherkin off, he'd probably sound a lot more lackluster. Just be like, and I'm done.
Vinegar stroke. So this is so I'm going to be honest. This explanation seems a little iffy to me, but we're not the experts here. We want to hear your take. I'm keeping this one brief. Just going to be completely honest. I was looking for a fun story. I'm going through a very dark time right now. I know there are other much more important things happening in the news, but sometimes you take a break for a sound gag. We've got a lot of pilots in the audience. We've got a lot of mechanics, a lot of aerospace engineers. What could be making this noise? Max, please play it one more time just to get us to the break and sing along at home.
We also coined a new expression, gherkin off. Gherkin.
Thanks to Max Williams. So Max, please play that sound cue. Take us to break, and we'll be back with another piece of strange news, which is much more serious.
All right, serious time, everybody. Welcome back. Biogen.
Is that like an energy drink?
No, it's a pharmaceutical company based out of Massachusetts.
I thought it was like a biological Jennifer.
Yeah, it's a Biogen.
Hey,
I can't.
Biogen.
I can't. I don't know. Sorry, I don't know why.
It's
but
been
okay.
a wild week.
Biogen is this really great company, guys. They just made a huge splash in the headlines because they are about to be in production for an Alzheimer's drug that in their clinical trials showed a 27% increase in a reduction of Alzheimer's symptoms compared to a placebo, and their stock just went boop. So that's a positive bloop, by the way, for anybody not watching. No, it went, ooh.
There it is.
And a very expensive stock, too. I think it was almost $200 per share or something crazy. But they're in the news for that. They are also in the news because they very recently settled a lawsuit that has been dogging them since, I believe, in the mid-2010s. This lawsuit has been dogging them. And they settled for $900 million. And as we've talked about on this show, $900 million is the most money you can think about until you get to the billions. And the billions are inconceivable for most of us. But for a pharmaceutical company, it's not that crazy.
Dropping the old bucket. I always wonder, though, with a figure like that, 900 million, why not just make it a solid bill? What's 100 mil between friends?
$900 million. Okay, so let's talk about why they paid $900 million. Well, this lawsuit that they've been a part of stems from a whistleblower who alleged that Biogen was improperly, let's say, influencing healthcare professionals into prescribing their medications, specifically for multiple sclerosis. They have 3 medications. I'm going to try and say them. You ready for this? Avonex,
So stoked.
Tisibri, and Tecfidera.
Beautiful.
Oh, great names.
I'll take all 3.
Great names.
Pay no attention to this double speed list of side effects.
Yes. Okay, so let me give you some of the details as according to the Department of Justice. They put out a press release on September 26th, this past Monday as we're recording. They point out that the whistleblower's name, a former Biogen employee, Michael Bodiniak, And he said that Biogen, quote, paid kickbacks to physicians to induce them, I like that word, induce them into prescribing the company's multiple sclerosis drugs. According to this person's complaint, between 2009 and 2014, they offered and paid remuneration in the form of speaker honoraria. So a small, usually rather small amount of money that's paid to somebody to come speak, unless you're like Hillary Clinton, and then you get lots of money for an honorarium, speaker training fees, consulting fees, and meals to people who went to these special events that Biogen put on, called like speaker programs, speaker events, right?
Mm-hmm.
And essentially the suit is saying that Biogen improperly used this money to influence these people. And they paid $900 million for it. But like,
why not just make it a solid bill? What's $100 million between friends? Sorry, I made that joke already. Continue. Excuse me.
And like most pharmaceutical companies we've talked about on this show before, and chemical companies and oil companies, they did not admit any wrongdoing.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's a bunch of money. Now let's put this to bed, okay? We don't have to talk about this anymore.
I'm sorry that you feel an apology is necessary. Here's some money. Good day to you.
Yeah.
Well, it's basically legalized hush money. You know, I mean, you think of the idea of hush money is usually paid under the table, but I mean, this is about as above the table as it can be. And it's, with this, we bought our way out of this, you know?
It's nolo contendere. You guys know that, right? That's just like where you're saying, look, I'm not saying anybody did anything, Your Honor, but I do not wish to disagree with you. Nolo.
Wow.
Nolo contendere.
And YOLO, because we're just going to go on living our best pharmaceutical life.
I had to plead
Nolo,
NOLO. I had to plead NOLO once for a
Like
car
speeding
accident I
ticket.
got into when I was a kid.
Yeah. It's just, it's the sketchiest thing. I mean, I understand that it has to, the plea of no contest. I understand why it exists. It just, to me, it always sounds, clearly all three of us had to plead NOLO at some point. Mm-hmm. It's a very common plea to make, but it just sounds so sketchy. It's like up there with stamp fraud. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I'm not saying anything happened, but I'm not disagreeing with what you said. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's such a weird thing.
Let's get into what I disagree with some of this and what I feel is wrong. Okay. And I just want to see what you guys think. So that's $900 million that they paid. Okay. They are going to pay the United States $844 million. And then they're going to pay $56 million to 15 states that were harmed by their whatever they did there. But how weird is it, guys, that they got in trouble for making a bunch of money, and now they just have to pay the United States a fee of a lot of money because they did something wrong? But like, who was harmed in this?
Hang on. Hey, they didn't say they did anything wrong. NOLO, bro.
I know, but like, I guess it's just so strange to me that you'd have to pay that much money to the government, as in like, I don't know. It's not like a bribe, but it's weird because in a way, guys, this pharmaceutical company is kind of doing business the way you do business when you've got a private healthcare system. Because how else do you let the healthcare professionals out there know that my new drug is on the market and you should subscribe, you should give it out to people who need help in this specific area? These are drugs for multiple sclerosis, right? These are like probably really important drugs that are available for people who have MS. It's not like some kind of pain medication, right? Or something like that, where like, that to me feels more egregious when you're just trying to sell that stuff like crazy. This is more like awareness. They're trying to do marketing, and they're doing it through these speakers events. I don't know. I don't want to have Biogen's back in this, but it does feel like this is one of the better ways you get word out about your stuff. What do you guys think?
It's tricky, man. It's tricky. You're raising great points. I mean, also, we should say, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are thinking about this as we're listening at home. We should say that this is not the first time Biogen had to pay up for allegations of shady shenanigans. And, you know, they stayed in NOLO, bro, throughout all of these. Just like, I'm not saying I did it, but I'm not disagreeing with you. Here's some money. You'll be good now. You good? Be good. The question is essentially, is this bribery, right? Is this how the game is played, how the pharmaceutical profit sausage is made? Okay, it's been a long day, folks. So the question
Nothing like
here,
pharmaceutical sausage.
It's the best grade.
It's the best grade.
Yeah, pharmaceutical grade sausage.
Yeah, that's our new. If podcasting doesn't work out, we're selling only pharmaceutical grade foodstuffs. So this is strange because it goes into the idea of what a fair market rate is for consultation or speaking fees, which also is sticky because speaking fees are a great way to launder money until you get caught. But they're not really laundering money, right? They're trying to grease the wheels such that when someone has a condition like multiple sclerosis and they see a doctor about it, that doctor has Biogen and their products front of mind. Now, that I think that becomes unethical when, let's say, a hypothetical doctor is pretty sure there's another medication that is cheaper and would work just as well, or there's a medication that might even work better. And because of the money they've been paid, they go with a Biogen product anyway. That seems like that's very dangerous. That's also kind of like violation of the Hippocratic Oath to begin with.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Well,
Matt.
there is an anti-kickback, what do they call it? Statute. An anti-kickback statute that states you can't do that, right? Exactly what you're describing, Ben. You can't pay someone to have a lesser medication prescribed because you got money from that person, right? That makes sense. And that's what Biogen is in violation of, at least according to this lawsuit. And that's why they had to pay all that money. But to me, as a pharmaceutical company, you can either make ads that are excruciating to watch for a viewer, right? That show up on Hulu and YouTube or wherever else.
Illegal in most countries, by the way.
Uh-huh.
It's only the US and New Zealand.
Yes. Or you do that thing that I've seen happen, we've talked about on the show before, where some rep for Biogen or whatever, Pfizer, name your company, comes into your local doctor's office and like buys lunch for the whole crew there that day, you know? And it's like, what? Okay. Oh no, they just brought cookies. They didn't buy us anything. They just gave us some cookies. There's no monetary value here. Like, okay.
Or why are pharmaceutical reps often, this is something a friend of mine in the medical community pointed out, why are pharmaceutical reps often what would be considered attractive people?
And highly paid.
And highly paid.
Yeah, if you've seen the series on Hulu, I think Dope Sick, about, Purdue and the way they essentially incentivized their salespeople to move product. I mean, which is what salespeople do, but they did so by downplaying the addictive nature of OxyContin and essentially falsifying documents, from the FDA, or at the very least greasing some wheels to make the studies tend more in their favor. It's pretty gross. And yeah, it is a very singles kind of meat market kind of vibe with these young hot pharma executives. It's weird. It's a weird world.
So then, of course, this is the part of the conversation where we have to once again say that if you are a business and you are doing something unethical or you're doing something criminal and you know that no actual person will get jail time, right? You know there will not be a criminal action against you. If you can afford the fine, then that just becomes a cost of doing business. You know what I mean? 900 million is a lot for many people, but it's not enough to sink a large, successful pharmaceutical company.
Guys, I just jumped over to the markets. Take a look at the markets. How are they doing with old Biogen, with all this bad press? You got fined having to pay $900 million. Oh, geez, pal, that's not good. Well, on Tuesday, their stock was worth, let's see, did it end of trading on Tuesday? It was worth $197.40. On the opening of trading, their stock was worth $277.83. Guys, that's a huge jump in stock price. And I was telling you, the settlement just happened this week as we're recording this. Their stock went up on Wednesday. The Boston Herald article that came out, that I read about this for the first time, came out on the 26th. That's on Monday. And then their stock price jumped up that much on Wednesday because that Alzheimer's drug I mentioned at the top, which is called lecanemab, by the way, it's estimated to be worth between $6 and $8 billion. So, jeez. In the end, because of our for-profit system of healthcare, of all, pharmaceuticals and all this stuff, this company that does wrongdoing, at least according to the law, can see massive profits because it's got another drug coming out. And they're probably going to do some kind of marketing to let everybody know, unless they don't have to now because it's getting press because of the financials.
This podcast is brought to you by
Pharmaceuticals.
Right. Pharmaceuticals. Talk to your doctor about zirconium today. Following side effects of Illumination Global Unlimited.
Strange sounds emanating from airlines.
Oh, sorry, fellow folks suffering from misophonia. But this is interesting, Matt. I think you point out something quite illustrative at the end here, where you're saying, yeah, the stocks continue to rise. And again, there are a lot of researchers who are doing incredibly important work with these companies. I don't think we're dinging them at all. Fellow nerds, we're on your team. But when you get to the high level moves here, like a Sackler family, right? Then you see the law changes. There's no way around it. The law is different for entities functioning at this level. And that's horrific.
I got nothing more to say. It just freaks me out. I'm glad the Alzheimer's drug does look to be hopeful. That'd be amazing. I don't care who develops it. Develop something for that, and I would be happy. And I think that's how the market is reacting, or why they're reacting. All right, guys, that's it for now. I think we're going to end on the bioflab. What is it? Biomap? Biogram?
Biogen. Biological Jennifer. Yes, we're going to call it a day today. Thank you, as always, so much for tuning in. What is your take on corruption in Mississippi? Or what's your take on small town corruption in general? We'd love to hear your stories. What do you think is making all those noises on a plane? And what's your take on the idea of corruption in the pharmaceutical industry? We can't wait to hear from you. We try to be easy to find online.
We try, hopefully succeed. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Conspiracy Stuff Show on Instagram.
If you want to call us, you can call 1-833-STDWYTK. It's a voicemail system. When you hear Ben, you'll know you're in the right place. You got 3 minutes. Say whatever you'd like. Give yourself a cool nickname. Please let us know if we had permission to use your voice and name on one of our listener mail episodes. If you don't like using the phone, we get it. Why not send us a good old-fashioned email? We are
conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.